All right, looks like we're live. Let's make sure it's going out okay on the old YouTubes here. Come on. Check. Make sure I'm not roboting or any shit like that. Come on. Come on, damn it. All right. Sounds all right. Okay. So, a few things I want to talk about. First off, I just watched a video. Arini recommended it to me by a YouTuber, Easy Peasy. I should have put the link in the description, but I linked it out on Gab and Facebook. If you follow me on either one of those, the Bechtloff, both those places. It's What the Hell is Wrong with Bob Chipman? It actually referenced the stream where I had Black James come on here and talk about a little bit of Bob Chipman gossip about what a lunatic he is. But it really was telling. And look, none of it's disputable. This is all shit you can go on to his Twitter and just scroll through it, and you see it. You see these fantasies about how, in Bob Chipman's mind, the authoritarian government of his dreams needs to rise up and take the power from those inferior, working class white folk, the people that actually make civilization possible. But his fat, spoiled ass doesn't understand that. Take the power from them and marginalize them, and they need to die. And it's this really bizarre sort of eugenics in his mind, but it's a eugenics that apparently favors fat, weak, useless people like Bob. And I don't know why the great irony is if Bob got the kind of authoritarian government he craves, it would line his ass up against the wall in a hurry. Because, an obese, diabetic, virginal man-child is not exactly a particularly good cog in any machine. So, in some ways, it's kind of the exact thing with the irony of the gay community, siding so much with far leftist shit. Because, soon as you no longer serve the purpose of tearing down the current order, the commies line your faggot ass up against the wall in a hurry because you don't, a bug chaser, puppy player isn't exactly a good cog in any machine. But it really was a great video. I highly recommend it. I found it personally hard to get through because Bob's taking a good long. As much as I love the shit on movie Bob, at the same time, I can't stare at that creature for too long. Bob is a really remarkably evil person, and he's sort of in some ways goes to show you that sometimes the most evil people are often the least dangerous. You look at any great villain in, I don't know, in fiction or even in history. And sometimes history, as we know, it is kind of fiction, but that's a whole different topic. Point is, you look at any great villain, take an iconic villain in your mind. I don't know, one of the James Bond villains going to take over the world while he's petting a cat, or a super villain, a Doctor Doom or a Magneto or Lex Luthor, a Cobra Commander, what have you. You take any of these sort of iconic villains, and what you see is actually a tremendous amount of virtue in them, but often maybe a few fatal flaws. But there's still some semblance of virtue. They're usually pretty good to their underlings, although sometimes, in fiction they don't depict it that way. But in real life, nobody rises to power without being good to those who follow them. There's at the very least some manner of discipline involved in them for them to reach that point. And then you look at somebody like Bob, and Bob lacks any sort of discipline. He lacks any sort of strength of will, of body, of mind even. He's not nearly as bright as he thinks he is. He's possibly a little bit, he's a little bit brighter than the average. Whoopie jack shit. But yeah, Bob Bob is a remarkably evil man and would be extremely dangerous if not for how utterly pathetic he is. I mean, he can obviously never accomplish any of his goals. He can never acquire any real political power. He'll never acquire any level of personal power. He's never going to acquire a great deal of wealth. He's probably already seen his peak of success at his current endeavors. He'll the rate he's going, he's gonna he's digging his own grave with a knife and fork. So I mean, he's probably got a decade left. Um, but it's okay because physical strength. He dreams of this world where physical strength doesn't matter, and it's only the mind and intellectual capital is all that matters. And it's just, it's so much like what some beat up nerd in high school fantasizes about. And plenty of us in the geek corner of things, we've thought about, we had those thoughts in high school. But we were like 13, 14. We got the fuck over it. We got the fuck over ourselves. Bob didn't do that. It really is disturbing when you study that guy. But it's also kind of important. And I know that sounds like I hate to inflate Bob's ego, but in a weird way, yes, the world should study the writings and musings of Bob movie Blob Chipman. Somebody says Bob wants Bob's like a fat version of MODOK from Marvel Comics. That's what he wants to be, an obese MODOK. But yeah, in a way, movie Bob's writings are very much his writings, his videos, his musings, his whole fucking Twitter timeline, very much worth studying. I would argue everybody that's sort of a geek needs to take a good long look at it and look at the dark, sad road you can go down. I've often joked about him being a virgin, and I'm almost certain he is. But at this point, he's so high off his own supply. I don't think if a woman wanted him, he'd even, he'd even go for it. He'd even realize it at this point. He's probably gotten himself to some weird asexual position where he's like the fucking like Sheldon in the Big Bang Theory, only not smart. Where he's just completely engrossed in the tism. Yeah, so I do recommend watching that video. It's by Easy Peasy on what the hell is wrong with Movie Bob. Very, very interesting read. So another thing I was thinking of, and then I'll take a look at the chat, see what we got going on in the chat. And I was thinking it was something on something I caught on like Fox News a few days ago or something like that. One of the news, I think it was Fox News, yeah. And this boomer's rambling on about violence and video game violence, and it's bad, and it's this terrible social ill. This is boomers once again, not understanding video games. It's something where they didn't have it, so it's automatically a waste of time. A boomer can look at you play a half an hour of a video game, think you're wasting your life away, and then they can go and watch 14 hours of television and not see the disconnect there. That said, though, there are times when I look at the video game industry, when I look at the gamers in general, and I can kind of see their point. I'm being honest with you. I know I got a lot of gamers in the audience, but let's talk. So much of what's coming out of the AAA, and I'm going to point the finger primarily at the Sony fanboys are probably the worst. But the the guys who got themselves a PS4 or an Xbox One, day one release before there was any software on it. There's still really no software on it, I would argue. But what I see a culture of not art, not even entertainment, not even toys. I see a culture, an industry of consumables. What I see in the AAA market is I see video games that are hyped and hyped and hyped and hyped. They come out, and a lot of times they come out, they're played for like a week by these people who bought it the first night, and then I see them on the used rack like 2 weeks later, if that. They're played, they're consumed by people who hype them as if they're the greatest thing in the world, and then a couple months go by and it's as if that thing never existed. Destiny is a perfect example. I remember I had buddies who thought Destiny's going to be the greatest fucking thing in the world, and they couldn't wait for it. They I think I knew some people who had gone out and fucking gotten it at midnight or some shit at a GameStop or something like that, and then like 2 months go by and then never talked about it again. It's like it never existed. And that cycle happens over and over and over again. It's almost the Madden effect of games at this point. Now, don't get me wrong, if you like football, I can understand why you'd like Madden. But Madden is the ultimate of disposable video game. I mean, a copy of Madden is worth fucking 30 cents 6 months after it comes out. Those things practically have an expiration date on them, like a can of soup. And that's before you even get into the multiplayer online scene, which I would argue is nothing but, it's nothing but loot boxes and it's just hamster wheels and Skinner boxes. That's all it is. MMOs are nothing more than, you geeks, you gaming geeks, you sneer at the normies playing Farmville on Facebook. But I got news for you. You fuckers playing the MMOs are no different. They're Skinner boxes. They're loot boxes. A few years ago, and I wrote this on my blog, and a lot of people were talking about it at the time. I'm talking 2013, around then, maybe 2014. People were talking about, are we going to enter a video game crash? Right? I would argue we win. We're almost through it. Not to sound like too much of a Nintendo fanboy, but Nintendo seeing real success again, and with the Switch, may be the beginning. Maybe a sign that we're pulling out of it, but we were already in the crash. We just, there was no software sales. Yeah, people bought these fucking PS3s or PS4s, and Xbones. But what the fuck game? There's no software on it. We saw dwindling sales. Ironically, Nintendo in third place was the only company that wasn't hemorrhaging money, mostly because they had a strong handheld market. But yeah, we already went through it. Now we have an insanely corrupt gaming press that has, sold us insane amounts of hype for years and years. But I would argue we're in it. Maybe we're pulling out of it, but we're in it. This has been a dark few years for games. I still contend. I know I'm a Nintendo fanboy. I contend the Wii U was the best of those three, just because there were fucking games on it. I know it had this reputation of not having games like the rest of them. But meanwhile, everybody who bought a Switch has a list of like 9 games from the Wii U at least that they'd like to see ported to the Switch. Well, maybe that's kind of an indicator that you should have gotten a Wii U. But that's neither here nor there. But yeah, I would argue we're maybe pulling out of it now. But I mean, I can't think of a game that came out on in the PS this last generation. If we're going to call this last generation over with the Switch as the start of the new generation, let's say we're going to call it that. I can't think of a game on the Xbox or PS4, and I'm sure there are some, mind you, but I can't think of a game where it's like I can see people are going to play this in 10 years. Maybe Fallout 4. Somebody mentions Witcher 3 in the comments. In the chat. I know a lot of people like that. But very few of them. I see a lot of games that are going to be very forgotten in a few years. And certainly there were no new franchises in this past generation I know of. New franchises, what? Destiny, The Order 1886, what the fuck, Yeah, I'm sure people are gonna be all about that in 10 years, aren't they? Meanwhile, again, not to suck Nintendo's dick too hard, I am a Nintendo fan, but I mean, people are still gonna give a shit about Splatoon in 10 years. I don't even like Splatoon, mind you, but people fucking love it. All right, and it will be a relevant franchise 10 years from now. The Order 1886 and Destiny, not so much. Nintendo gets a lot of hate from the Sony and the Microsoft fanboys, and the hardware is inferior. So what? I would argue chasing graphical fidelity, for instance, as hard as the industry does, is probably one of the worst aspects of it right now. Because it leads to a bunch of, forgettable games that won't age well. Far better is a inspired art direction than a powerful graphics engine. How much graphical fidelity do you need to see the same shades of brown and gray over and over again? There's less graphical fidelity. Whoopie jack shit. That's like the jackass who goes to see every one of the Transformers movies because the special effects are good. Or the guy who loves Last Jedi because it's such a visual spectacular. You know what? That sort of thinking in movies leads to movies like Avatar, where everyone fucking loved it for 6 months after it came out, and then everyone forgot it existed. That's the kind of video games we're making. The newest and best thing, and then you forget it exists. So yeah, maybe the Switch doesn't have the best hardware. I don't fucking care. Breath of the Wild looks great. Yeah, looks as good as it needs to. I actually like the overall design of the hardware because I kind of like the portable aspect of it. I don't have to hook it up to a TV, and I like that. I don't live alone. I'm throwing people off the TV every time I feel like firing up a game. Hell, I don't have a TV in my room, and I like to play games in my room. And I don't really, I don't really have a good spot to set up a TV in my room. And already the Switch has more games on it than, the Switch has more games on it than I have money to get because I'm hurting for money right now. Hint, hint, by the way, if you enjoy the show, check out PayPal and Patreon. I had 2 weeks in which I got no fucking work. That's why I moved on to a different job because I couldn't get no hours. So I ain't got the money to throw down for a game anyways. The only reason I was able to get Odyssey and Breath of the Wild is because I sold some stuff I wasn't going to play anymore and got myself some store credit. But yeah, more games than I have money for, certainly. But even if I fucking won the lottery and, if I was living high off the hog or something, I could just go to the game store and get every damn Switch title I wanted. There's more games than I got fucking time to play. I mean, Odyssey and Breath of the Wild alone will keep me entertained for a year. And even what the hell? There's something where it's like Nintendo's put out some sort of game where it's like some sort of like cardboard paper craft shit where you can make really intricate cardboard paper craft stuff, and it even will like have little kind of semi-mechanical aspects that pushes buttons and interacts with the Switch. And it's a big I see all these gamers making fun of it, like, oh, it's just you'll just buy cardboard if it says Nintendo. Look, it's not for me. I have no fucking interest in it. But if more arts and craftsy inclined people, and especially kids and parents, want to do this, heaven forbid that something be outside the fucking box. Somebody says Bechtloff still working graveyard. I'm starting first shift next week. I wasn't able the job I was at just stopped giving me fucking hours. So a couple days ago, I guess it was earlier this week. I just called up temp service and found myself another job. But yeah, for as much as some of the, it kind of comes down to what I was saying about Star Wars fans, where I said before that Star Wars sucks right now because Star Wars fans have allowed it to. It's not the fault of Disney. It's not the fault of Lucas. It's the fault of Star Wars fans because, that franchise continues to suck over and over again, and the fans just keep eating it up. And it's only with Last Jedi that I see them even starting to say, okay, maybe we shouldn't be putting into this. But it's kind of the same with the AAA market. These games all suck, and y'all are gonna like. It doesn't matter how overhyped shit is. Sony and Microsoft don't sell games anymore, and they haven't for a while. They sell hype. They sell graphics. They sell day one DLC and season passes, and sometimes they push it too far. Like I think it was one of the Deus Ex had some ridiculous season pass bullshit that everybody bucked against. I think, top of my head, and then what was it? The loot boxes in the Star Wars Battlefront games, people are finally kicking against again. But it's when you fans kick against the video game industry, it's always, 2 steps forward, 1 step back with its foot. It's 2 inches in, 1 inch out with how deep the video game industry is fucking you. But they're getting you used to it. Somebody says Cuphead was a good platformer from Microsoft. Yes, it was. Cuphead was a very rare instance of the exact kind of things the game industry needs more of. Not merely because it's a platformer, but because it's unique. The art style alone is evidence that something like Cuphead needs to exist. So he says Cuphead did seem to really capture a lot of people's love of characters. It was fun to watch, very well done. Oh yeah, I can be entertained just watching people play Cuphead. That's just how gorgeous the visuals are in it. I mean, I haven't had a chance to play it yet. I'll have to get it on the PC because this one game is by no means enough for me to justify getting a fucking Xbox. But yeah, Cuphead's probably gonna make me break down, finally get a Steam account because it looks that damn good. Somebody says, again, something as simple as Bomberman is fun, even on the weakest system. You know why here recently? Because recently Retron announced, Retron's a great company for these old school, clone systems. But they announced a Retron 77, which was going to be a clone system for the Atari 2600. Even had a little bit of wood trim on it, and it looked just adorable. And Atari's before my time. My first game system was an NES. And the handful of times I played Atari at cousin's house, well, those games didn't hold up. Let me put it that way. But I was mildly interested in getting it. And when it finally comes out, if I have the spare money for it, I might at some point get it. Who knows? And because, the Atari library is by and large dirt cheap. You can get basically every game, worth owning on the Atari. $10 is an expensive one for the most part. But the reason I was drawn towards these simpler games, and the reason I find myself going back to even, very early 80s arcade games, I find myself going back to, Hubert and Pac-Man and shit like that more often than not, is because I'm seeing a AAA industry that is extremely technologically advanced, extremely high graphical fidelity and all that, but it's missing soul, it's missing fun. So I find myself wanting to go back to what is that kind of essential bit of fun that's missing. Somebody says, Retron noted, I owned an Atari. Yeah, I was born in 83. So, I was 2 years old when the NES came out. I had an NES since I was like 4 or 5. I had it basically since I can remember. Somebody said Cuphead looks better than any Call of Duty game. Pretty much. And yeah, look, it's easy to look at Labo. That's a Nintendo thing with the paper craft, cardboard craft stuff. And look, it's easy to look at that and say, oh, that's silly. But, a lot of people like that kind of hands-on craft shit, putting that together. And hell, I'd argue it's probably good for kids, to have a little bit of hands-on actual fucking crafts like that. And it's probably too fucking pricey, in my opinion, for what it is. But, if people like it, then whatever. If it flops, it flops. But, shit, Nintendo's out there trying something different. Somebody said, did you see that the World Health Organization labeled video game addiction as a mental illness? The same organization that removed transgenderism. Yeah, that is kind of funny. You want to... you want to accuse somebody of being mentally ill because they're playing too much fucking Call of Duty, but if that same guy wants to cut his dick off, that's just okay. Somebody says, Bechtloff, did you hear the latest Zelda rumor about a Link's Awakening remake? I did not hear that. No. Link's Awakening has a very interesting story as far as Zelda games, but did suffer a bit from the hardware it was on. Just the fact that you gotta. There's a few changes they could have made would have made it easier. Like you shouldn't have to tie your shield to a button. At least when you're on a Game Boy 2-button fucking command system. Just have it be like the original Legend of Zelda. Your shield works if you don't have your sword out and you're facing that way. Somebody said, Bechtloff, do you have an actual marketable skill, something that doesn't lend itself to shirts? Not sure what lend itself to shirt. Oh, shifts. No, I really don't, honestly. I'd like to maybe figure out if I can figure out a way to learn a trade or something. But I mean, I don't know. Maybe I could get a loan or something, but I can't fucking afford. I'm too busy. I'm too busy, earning a living to make any real money, as it were. Somebody says Nintendo is the only games company that tries anything new and is constantly shit on for it. Yeah, pretty much. I think it was Yahtzee or something was talking about. He did a review of Breath of the Wild and the Switch at the same time, and he talked about how all the different control schemes are dumb except for you put the Joy Cons in the quote unquote control handler. He goes, yeah, like a normal controller, like in the real world. Yeah, because heaven forbid something be a little fucking different. You know, heaven forbid it be something other than you just sitting on your increasingly fat ass static pushing buttons in your lap. Um, Somebody says, "Can you learn a skill on the job? Like if the company will pay you to learn it?" Nah, not where I'm at. No. Um, I don't know. I know some people that do some trade work. And I've long thought about maybe trying to talk one of them into letting me, I don't know, shadow them. Work with them for you know basic shit unskilled pay and learn it that way. I don't know. And I'll figure something out. Right now, I mean, I got to just actually get some fucking hours under my belt and get some fucking money under my belt. Get some bills cleaned up and shit like that. Um, it was so stupid. I was finally starting to get some bills cleaned up. I was finally starting to get under my feet again at that part-time job. And then somebody, a buddy of mine approached me with this other opportunity and said, "Oh, it's going to be great. Trust me. It's a little bit less than what you're making, but then if you're there long enough, it's going to be a ton." And I went for it and it turned out to be shit. Like I couldn't get any hours. The schedule was all over the fucking place. Every day I had off, which was a lot of days, was on call. So I had to, prepare my schedule about maybe they'll let me fucking work. It was a nightmare. Um, Somebody says Workforce Investment Opportunity Act will give you a loan. I'll have to look into that. Um, Somebody says that's all America's good for, earning money as a location to live. I wouldn't say that at all. I rather like America. Um, Bechtloff, thoughts on Mormons? I mean, Mormonism is a faith. It's pretty fucking silly. There's that. Um, and you don't get chased out of a whole bunch of states in a row for no fucking reason. So it says the social contract between employers/employees is not being honored on both sides in many cases. Yeah, I'd agree with that. Um, honor and social trust are hanging by a thread. And by the way, there's no you in honor, Davis, you damn Canuck. Marriage, race relations, employment, we're seeing a lot of devolution. Bechtloff, you know what a job is, right? Just over broke. I mean, honestly, yeah, I would like to learn a trade. I gotta see if I can figure out a way to maybe take some classes or something. I don't have the fucking money for it. I mean, I don't have the money for shit right now. You know. So, Bechtloff, do the Amish believe good works are necessary for salvation? You know, I'm not really sure. They certainly act like it. I mean, they're probably the most legalistic branch of Christianity I think has possibly ever fucking existed. But I'm not really sure. I'm gonna say they do, but don't necessarily. I'm not an expert on that, but I did know at my former church some former Amish, and they were very. They had come to a real gospel of grace. That's why they left the Amish community, and they were very. Anytime they sensed any legalism in the church, they spoke up and said, "No, no, no, that's not cool." They were very sensitive to that, having left a culture of harsh legalism. Let me see what is this. Bechtloff, you know a lot about nerd culture. I'm sure you could create STH to cash out on this niche. Like shit to cash out on this niche. I'm not sure what you meant there. David says, I speak Her Majesty's English. Yeah, well, here in America, all right, we told Her Majesty to go fuck herself. All right. And we chased King George's navy away using nothing but muskets and pitchforks. All right. Stuff. Sorry. Okay, that's what you meant. Stuff. Well, I mean, I'm sort of doing that with this channel. The animated videos and shit. Let's see. Matt Forney in the chat says, I can't confirm this myself, but academic composition is run by a tax cheating cuck. Avoid him. Huh, I did not know that. I had him sponsor this live stream once before, but that's somebody says you can learn computer programming for free on Khan Academy, Code Academy. In this internet age, it's a valuable skill. Yeah, but I don't think I had a knack for programming. I mean, shit. Like, I hated fucking just doing data entry at my last job. Somebody says, yeah, we rebelled against King and God, killed a bunch of British kids over a 2-cent raise in the tea tax. I wouldn't say we rebelled against God. At least not in the American Revolution. We rebelled against the king, sure. That wasn't our king anymore. That's the point. That was a foreign power imposing our will on us. We were no longer British, not really. We were Americans, damn it. Somebody says, Bechtloff, are the weather updates only in the morning shows? I need the Bulbasaur in the helicopter to update me. Yeah, it's raining communists out of this helicopter. Let's see. Is this the My Job Sucks stream? No, My Last Job Sucks is what this stream is about. Americans can't figure out how to pronounce what? Drought? It's drought. What are you talking about? So it says Britain already rebelled against God long before America. Well, everybody's rebelled against God. That's the whole reason, you know, that one guy got nailed to that tree. So he says, can you Uber or Lyft for money in Amishville? I don't know. I've heard very mixed things about Uber, though. I've heard people say it's. I've heard people swear by it. I've heard people say it's absolute nightmare. I don't know. like I said, I got another job starting Monday. It should be a decent job. It's first shift to start, and then second shift after that. So, um, something else I wanted to rant about, and I touched on this on the Facebook page yesterday. Let me even bring it up. Oh, there's another fucking funny article. I want to talk about this. In fact, I'll talk about this first. This is off noisy.vice.com. The enduring legacy of Disney's Black millennial classic, A Goofy Movie. So apparently, we was goofy. How about that? This is an actual article I posted on the Facebook. Yeah, we apparently Goofy's black. Who knew? So that's a thing that was on Vice. I'm not gonna read it because life's too short. But man, they're fucking hilarious. Those guys. Oh, Vice, never change. All right, so there's something else I want to talk about, and I see this all the time with the trads and all. I saw somebody like, "Oh, peak civilization was in the Middle Ages," and man, sometimes the tism is just too much. You want to bitch about modern times, about modernity, and even romanticize fucking medieval times. But at a certain point, like, come on, guys, like, step back and have a little perspective, okay? For all the major problems in the modern world, and right now, trust me, there's a lot. I'm not disputing that. Real fucking problems that need worked on. But for the most part, the last 100 years or so, it's probably the most blessed, miraculous time to exist. And nearly any one of your ancestors would probably switch places with you in a heartbeat. Certainly with your dad or grandfather in a heartbeat. Wouldn't have to think about that. And if you think, oh, because they no, take one fucking look at the miracle of civilization. That is your grocery store, your common fucking grocery store. All right. Have a little perspective, okay? This drives me nuts. You show the modernity, so what a terrible time to be alive, and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, okay, whatever. Maybe once in a while, instead of jerking off to fucking, a painting from the 1400s, maybe just take a moment and realize how unbelievably blessed you are. Like, that's probably the biggest one. Not the biggest. One of the biggest problems modern man has is how unbelievably ungrateful we all fucking are. Take a look around you, and be fucking thankful for once. I mean, I bitch about being broke and shit like that, and and it sucks. I don't like it. But I'm not starving. I'm not. I still wake up and wonder what I'm going to have for dinner, not if I'm going to have dinner. And that fact alone puts me leagues above the vast majority of every one of my ancestors. I, as a lower middle class man, live better than a king did a few hundred years ago, save perhaps for the fact that he would often have a harem. So sometimes it just drives me nuts. Like, let's have a little fucking perspective. Oh, I wish I lived in the 1500s. Why? So you know, you probably would have died. There's a good chance you would have died of diarrhea, related death before you were 20 because the boiled goose anus you had for lunch wasn't quite boiled enough. Yeah, sometimes it's like just have a little fucking perspective. You know, you want to talk about the many problems facing the modern world, sure, and obviously in the last few years in particular, there's been a great deal of degeneracy that just absolutely needs to be reversed, or it's gonna bring everything tumbling down. Um, but at the same time, man, the charmed life we all live. In many ways, our biggest problems are the result of too much prosperity, obesity, and really degeneracy, sexual degeneracy and all that stuff. Those are those are rich men's vices, aren't they? So yeah, all these people, it's sort of similar to how Movie Bob fantasizes about this authoritarian government that he thinks would solve all the problems and make everything like fucking Star Trek: The Next Generation. Would really such an authoritarian government would line his fat, useless ass up against the wall. Well, so many of you fucking autists that think that you would have been so much fucking better off in the 1500s or whatever, understand that you'd spent your life fucking a dirt poor farmer, you know, covered in filth. So yeah, have a little fucking perspective, you know. And like I often say, as with any good preacher, I'm preaching to myself just as much as I'm preaching to you, because it's easy for me. I've had a rather rough year in 2017, and I'm hopefully pulling out of it now, but it hasn't been that nice to me. But so what? How much can I really complain? It's just it's LARPing, it's escapism. It's just it irks me once in a while. It really does. Somebody says, "What's this stream about? What's any of my streams about?" Somebody says, "What if we could have medieval culture with modern technology? Could we have? You know, could we have had that kind of culture with modern tech? Could we have had modern technology with that kind of culture? A great deal of our modern technology came from America, the land of opportunity, the land of forever chasing the horizon. Um, you know, I don't know how much a lot of you know peasants spending their entire life dirt farming really leads to a lot of innovation. Davis says, back then there was a preference of social roles and useful economic activities. The modern world discards useless people. Well, part of that is again our biggest problems, and come from too much success. You know, our biggest problems now come from the fact that life is no longer about survival in the same way it was eons ago. Now, maybe this will all come tumbling down and it will once again be about survival. But again, enjoy the blessed time you live. Be thankful for it. And again, there's problems with modernity. There's things that need addressed. But don't think for a moment that, any one of your ancestors wouldn't happily trade places with you. Just my grandfather alone. Let's just go back. This was probably roughly 100 years ago. Because my grandfather was pretty old when my father was born. So, um, you know, my grandfather worked his younger adult days in a coal mine, a fucking coal mine. All right. And I've had some shit jobs in my day. None of them were a fucking coal mine. All right. Certainly not a coal mine in the fucking 30s. My grandfather watched a buddy of his kicked to death by a fucking mule on the job. That was the job. That was a bad day at work for him. You know, his office buddy got kicked to death by a fucking mule, which my grandfather then punched that mule in the face and cracked its skull in half and killed it. Um, my grandfather was a badass motherfucker. Um, in fact, when the foreman gave him shit about it, he said there was company property, that mule, and he said, I'm sorry that I didn't kill that mule sooner. Um, but after working in the coal mine for most of his adult life, um, he then, in I think the early 40s, found himself a nice cushy job as a fucking machinist and welder and metal worker. That was his cushy job he moved on up to. Right? We never sit and take and sit back and take stock of how fucking good we have it. Somebody in the chat says the trad fags want to live in the 15th century so the priest can speak in pretty Latin while pegging their asses. I didn't say that. That was in the chat. Uh, but yeah, I mean, look, it's by all means, let's look at the past and learn from it and try to say, are there maybe wrong turns we took? Um, are there what can we learn from the past? By all means, we should be trying to make things better. And there's real systemic problems going on in the modern world that have to be addressed, or we're not going to have it good for long. But all that said, once in a while, just have some fucking perspective. And it's something I see in this corner of the internet, and it bugs me. And it has bugged me for a while. Um, like I said, just have some perspective. Matt Forney making some gay jokes about Catholic priests. I don't even want to read. uh, let's see. I don't know how long we've been going on. I might wrap this up now. I think I've rambled about an hour. Oh, probably wrap this up then. All right, folks. If I'm wrapping it up, so if there's anything you really want to say in the chat, want me to see whatever, speak now or hold your peace till the next stream, I guess. And if you enjoy the show, check out my PayPal, check out my Patreon. You can help me out. Lord knows I could use a few bucks this week. Again, having some perspective. I'm not going to die. I'm not going to starve in the gutter this week, but Lord knows, I could use a buck or two. And as I've said before, you should support the alternative media you enjoy. If that's me, then, support me. If that's somebody else, then support them. But, whatever it is you want to see more of, well, maybe cough up a shekel or two once in a while. You could either be a regular supporter of the Patreon, or you can throw me, 1, 2, 3, 4, 50, 60 bucks on the PayPal, whatever you want, whatever you feel like throwing out there. Forney mentions, yes, tonight on Forney's channel, 7 p.m. Eastern, I will be on, like I said, I'll be on Forney's channel discussing the first year of Trump. So check that out. A bunch of other people will be on there, I believe. See. So he says enable super chat, just go to settings. Yeah, actually earlier today I went and enabled the AdSense account, which I had to do first, and then I'm going to figure out how to do the super chat. If people want to, throw me ducats on the super chat, they can. Let's see. So he says Canadian rye whiskey versus American rye whiskey. I couldn't tell you. I'm not really a whiskey guy. David's sending me some fucked up picture on the Skype. I don't have Luke on here, so I can't throw that up. I mean, I don't know about the Canadian rye. I don't know. I mean, I assume there would be maple syrup in it, so I don't know. I don't know how that would be. Somebody says, "Where can I donate DSP coin to Bechtloff?" I only take Dogecoin. Dogecoin. It's going places. Canadian bacon or American bacon? Well, I actually don't like bacon in general, so I don't know what to tell you. I don't like pork. Canadian bacon just ham though. Typical fucking Canadians. Try and call something bacon when it's just ham. All right, I think I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up, folks. Like I said, if you enjoy the show, PayPal, Patreon, hit me up with some shekels, or just like, comment, and subscribe. That helps the channel grow. And don't forget, if you're on the Gab, follow me on the Gab, Bechtloff. If you're on the Facebook, facebook.com/the Bechtloff, and you can follow me there. And I do post on both those things, so check it out. All right, folks, that's all I got for this afternoon. Thank you all for listening. Bechtloff out.